Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then just welcome, and I hope that you will stick around. Today I'm out with yet another crochet tutorial, and this time I'm going to teach you how to crochet a beanie. I have already shared a tutorial on my channel for making a crochet beanie, but this time I'm going to teach you a slightly different method which will actually make your beanie to look like it's knitted even though this is crochet, so that's quite exciting. And as always, I'm trying to be as beginner friendly as possible, so explaining every single step and stitch that is used during this project. But if you have any questions or need extra help, then just feel free to reach out down below in the comment section and I will try to help you from there. And besides that, I have also prepared a written version of this pattern which is also linked down below, and if you would like to support my work even more, then feel free to join my membership here on YouTube. But now without further ado, let's jump into it. Here are the materials that I will be using. Here I have some acrylic and wool blend yarn, and here are some more specs just in case if you are wondering about this specific brand that I'm using, but otherwise you can use any yarn you wish. But with this one I will need approximately 1 skein, so around 100 grams, but of course it depends on the size that you are going for. And of course you would also need a crochet hook. For this project I will be using 6mm hook since it matches with the requirements for this yarn, but otherwise feel free to adjust depending on the yarn that you are using. And you will also need scissors, as well as it will be useful to have a darning needle at the very end of this project, so just make sure that you are using one that is big enough to actually match your yarn. But now let's get started. So here I have my yarn, and now we can get started, and our first step will be to do a slip knot. And for that I normally just grab my yarn like this, so it looks like that, and then I twist it to create a cross here, and then through this loop I just grab yarn and pull it through to create a knot, and also to have this bigger loop. And then we can grab our crochet hook and pull it through this loop, and then just adjust the size of this loop so it actually fits our hook like this. So this is our slip knot, and now we can get started, and we basically just have to do some chains. And for that you just have to grab yarn and pull it through the loop that you have on your hook, and then just keep on going. And in my case I will be doing 40 chains in total, but that of course depends on the size of the yarn and hook that you are using. But you can easily also measure the needed amount of chains for yourself by measuring from the tip of your head until your forehead, and just make sure that you are also including chains that will be for the folded brim. And here I have done 40 chains in total, so now we can start working on the first row. And to get started we basically just have to skip this last chain that we did, and then starting from the next one, this is where we are going to place in our first stitch. And actually throughout this project we will just be using slip stitches. So to do a slip stitch you just have to go through this chain like this, then grab yarn and pull it through, and then pull it through the loop that you already had on your hook like this, and then just proceed further with the next chain and just repeat the same process. So going through this chain, grabbing yarn, pulling it through, and then pulling it through the loop that you already had on your hook like this. So here I have already done a few of these slip stitches, and this is how it looks. So now just keep on going until you reach the end of this row and you have gone through all the chains that you had here. And as you're working on these slip stitches, just make sure that they are not too tight, and rather make them a little bit looser if possible, because that will help us later on during the following rows. And now here the first row is finalized, and this is how it looks. And now we can begin working on the second row. So to do that we just have to first chain one and then turn our work like this, and now we can begin with the second row. And actually the process for the second row and all the following rows will be the same. We will be using slip stitches, but in this case we will be doing them through the back loop, so only through this loop that we have here instead of going through both of these loops. So let's get started, and basically we just have to go through this back loop, then grab yarn and pull it through, and then pull it through the loop that we already have on our hook like this. So this is the whole process. You can now just proceed further with the following stitches, and just make sure that you are going through the back loops instead of going through the full stitch like this. So just do that and continue going through all the stitches that you have here from the previous row by placing one slip stitch inside each of them in the back loop until you reach the end. And now here I have completed the second row, and this is how it looks. So now we can begin further with the third row, and process for that would be basically the same. So first we are just chaining one, then flipping our work, and then starting to do slip stitches inside the back loops that we have here from the previous row. And actually from now on we basically just have to keep on repeating this process that we had for the second row for all the following rows that we have. So I'm literally doing the same thing here for the third row and just doing slip stitches inside the back loops. But otherwise from now on you just have to keep on repeating these steps, and you just have to keep on adding new rows until this part that we are working on here is building in length and you are able to wrap it around your head. And now here I have already done multiple rows, and this is how it looks. So now this knit alike effect is really becoming more noticeable, and also if you stretch it you can see that there is some extra flexibility, and also from the other side it looks basically the same. So yeah, now you just have to keep on going and adding new rows until this part grows in length and you are able to wrap it around your head. And here I have finished all the rows, and this is how this panel looks, and now it actually wraps around my head when I try it on. And if I measure it you can see that it is approximately 47-48 centimeters or almost 19 inches, but of course it stretches quite a lot, so you don't have to worry about the measurement to match exactly the circumference of your head, because there will be this stretching element also included. But now that this is done we can actually proceed further, and our next step would be that we are actually connecting the first and the last row together. And again, as always, we will just be doing slip stitches, so nothing really has changed throughout this project because we are still progressing further with just using slip stitches as our main stitch for this whole project. And first, to get started, I'm just placing these rows like this together with each other or facing each other like that, so we can understand which stitch will have to be connected, and we will basically try to connect exactly the same stitch on both sides. So that's just something that you have to keep in mind. And here in this side I just have my hook, but now what we want to do is that we just want to go through the stitch on the other side. So I'm just going through these, basically the chains, that is our first row, and here I'm just going through the first chain, and then I'm grabbing this loop that we have from where we finished just now, and then I'm just pulling it through like this. So in this way we are kind of like connecting and looping these stitches kind of together. And then to get started I'm just chaining one, and after that we can begin further with doing slip stitches also here on this side. And to get started, first I'm just going through the same chain that is on this side or the same stitch, and then I'm going through the first stitch or the back loop of the first stitch here on the other side. So I'm just going in there like this, and then performing slip stitch just in the same way as we did it before, like this. So now these first stitches of both sides are connected, and then after that we are just proceeding further with the next. So here I'm just going through the next stitch here on this side, and then also going through the same stitch here on the other side, and just doing that in the back loops, and then again just performing a slip stitch to connect them together like this. And then you just have to keep on repeating this until all stitches here are connected and we have connected both of these sides together. So here I have done few of these stitches already, and now we are just proceeding further until this side is completely connected together. So just continue doing that, and then I will see you here at the very end. And now here this side is connected, and this is how it looks. And if you check it on the other side, you can see that we have actually created quite smooth connection here, and it almost blends in completely with all the rest of this panel and pattern. So what I'm going to do is that I will actually keep this side inside my head, also because here I have, for example, a couple of loose ends, and then I will just turn it on the other side once I have completely finished this beanie. But now that we are here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish it off by chaining one like this. And then the last step for us is to actually sew this part together and to create this beanie shape by doing it like this. And to do that, I'm first just going to cut off yarn, and I'm also leaving quite a long tail here, because this tail will be used for actually connecting this upper part of the beanie. So I'm leaving approximately 30 or 50 centimeters. It's better to make it longer because you can always cut off extra. So I'm just cutting off my yarn now, and then here it is, and also just tightening this loose end that we have here. So now we can basically grab our darning needle and just put it on this yarn like this. I'm using the biggest size that I could find because I'm also using quite thick yarn, so just to make sure that it fits. And then our next step is to actually go through the side of all of these rows all the way around and weave this yarn inside them. And to do that, I'm just going inside like randomly just on the very edge and going in from one side and then going out from the other side. So kind of like looping it through, and yeah, we just have to do it all the way around. And then once you have done it for a few rows already, then just kind of like pull this yarn through so we get more of it, and then proceed further with the remaining rows that you have. And also, if you notice that you're running short on the yarn tail that you have, you can just tighten it already and do it like after every few rows that you have, but otherwise just go all the way through like this. And now here I have gone all the way around and I have basically weaved this yarn through all the rows that I have here, and in some points I already tightened it. But now that this is done and we have reached basically the beginning where we started with this darning needle, what we have to do is that we just have to tighten this part as much as we can, and we are just pulling this yarn super tightly. So perhaps start by like some of the previous rows from the very beginning and then go through the remaining ones, and at the end just pull this loose end as much as you can. And now here I have closed it as much as I could, and as you can see there is a bit of a hole here at the top just because all these rows and this yarn in general is quite thick. But now what we are going to do with this remaining tail that we have here, we are actually going to close it by sewing it together. So basically what you want to do is that you just want to again make sure that it's tightened as much as possible, and then go through this top part and sew it together so this hole is not visible. So I'm just going randomly from one side to the other and just closing it by sewing it together, as I mentioned. And there is no specific stitch, it's pretty much super random how you can close it, but just do it multiple times to make sure that it is actually closed. And now that I have done it multiple times, it is in fact closed and you cannot really tell that there was a hole at all. And now what we want to do is that we just want to kind of like fasten off and just tie a knot to make sure that this thread or the top of the beanie is not going to untie at any point. So I'm just going through a space just nearby where we have our thread and pushing my darning needle through like this with as much yarn as possible, so we have something like this. And then this remaining end, I'm just looping it through this loop like this a couple of times to make sure that we are kind of like creating a secure knot like this, and then just closing this knot by pushing it to the very bottom like this. And now we can remove our darning needle and this part should be closed. And of course, if you have a couple of loose ends here, then just weave them in here in the inner part. But otherwise we just have to turn our beanie to the other side, because this is going to be the right side of this beanie, because as I said, we have fewer loose ends, and also this connection point here is a little bit smoother, and then here we again have another loose end, so just weave in that. And then to wear it, we just want to fold this bottom part kind of like to create a brim like this, and now our beanie is basically ready to be worn. And here is the final look, and this is how it looks on me. I think it turned out to be super cute, and you cannot really tell if it's crochet or knitted, but it's definitely a super nice project for the winter season. And that was it from me today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this tutorial is going to be useful for you for making your crochet beanies or even making them as gifts for the winter season. And if you did enjoy this video, then please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!